Mark 9:23-25. And Jesus said unto him, If you can, all things are possible for one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief. And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. So Jesus said, if you can believe. I've been looking at the scriptures on faith a little here lately, and I guess we can't get too much of faith, can we? Because sometimes in this life faith is all we have, and we need to know when faith is all we have, then it's all we need. Okay? And that's just how it is. Sometimes in life, this just the only way you can keep going on, and the only way you can keep moving with God and toward God is by faith. This boy had gotten demon possessed, and he was struggling to get him healed. And so he took the boy to the disciples of Jesus, and they couldn't heal the boy. They couldn't cast out the demon, and the boy was in pretty bad shape, because the devil would take him and throw him on the ground, and he was mute and couldn't talk. And the devil was really having a heyday with him. And that's what the devil does. And that's why we have to have faith. If we don't have faith, at least the size of a mustard seed, then there's going to be times in our life where the devil's going to beat up on us, and we might not be able to handle it properly like God would like for us to. I know many times we fall short, and I think a whole lot of that times because faith isn't put into operation. So, this scripture is a good test, and Jesus' command, he said, the mute and the deaf spirit come out. I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. And once that went forth out of Jesus' mouth, the devil, the demons, they have to obey it. His word won't return to him void. Oh, I love that. And so the demons, you see, there's only one devil. There's only one devil, but there's many demons. And sometimes even in the King James Version it talks the devils came out of him, but it's not devils, it's demons, because there's only one devil. But anyway, he said, if you would believe, and he says, I believe, but help my unbelief. There's times that we need our unbelief helped, isn't there? Sometimes some pretty bad, big things that we are confronted with, and we need God we need help. And I've been noticing in the scriptures, which I have noticed it a lot in my life, but Jesus is moved by faith. And I hope to show some of that in this video. He went to his hometown of Nazareth, and he was going to do many mighty works there, but he couldn't do the many mighty works. He did do some, but he couldn't do and what he planned on doing because of their unbelief. They wasn't people of faith. And so he left there not doing what he planned on doing. So we have to realize that Jesus, you know, he told this father, this demon-possessed son, he said, if you can believe, all right? And he wanted to believe, but he said, help my unbelief. And I think there's a whole lot of us in the church today that we need our faith help, don't we? Maybe we need to see a miracle like this father saw, or the healing of his son, the casting out of the demon. I don't know. I guess I should just speak for myself. But I think that we're living in a time that has come upon this world that if we're gonna live in such a way and be blessed of God in such a way, that it's going to have to be because of our faith. Faith somehow, Jesus, he said many times, never have I seen so great a faith, no, not in all Israel. And that was a Gentile displaying that kind of faith. And he said, wow, he says, now that's faith. I never even seen that kind of faith in Israel. And Israel had all the reason in the world to believe in God. Now I know they don't believe in Jesus, and I know that the whole nation as a whole, they haven't received him as their Messiah. During the Great Tribulation, Israel is redeemed and brought back to God. Most of Israel, not all of Israel. And that's, I've already talked on that. So recognizing the fact that if the Lord honors faith, then faith is what we need. And I know there are those who say, well, you don't need to see a miracle to have faith. That's not real faith. If you see, you should be able to believe without seeing the miracles. And they're right, we should. We should be able to believe in him. But I think sometimes in my own life, when I see a miracle, it strengthens my faith. And if I experience a miracle, then it's even more so, it strengthens my faith. And in the last few years, speaking for myself, there was some things there that lots of times I just didn't know what to do, and all I could do was just live by faith. And I couldn't understand some of the things, and I couldn't, honestly figure it all out. But God has done so much in my life, and He's shown me so much of Himself, that even in times when all I'd had to do is admit that I was away from God, but for some reason God wouldn't allow me to do that. In my lowest point, when I couldn't see nothing, no way out, and even today sometimes that spirit of unbelief and doubt wants to enter in. But I always just say, well, if God did those miracles for me then, He can do those miracles for me now. And somehow the hand of God just reaches down into my life, and somehow at the moment when I thought I just couldn't go any further, the Spirit of God would just grab hold of me and say, yeah, come on. Say, you can make it, So once you've experienced miracles, you can look back. And when something's hitting you or confronting you in your life, and the devil's saying, you're not going to be able to get through this. This is too much for you. God's forsaken you, and on he goes with his rhetoric, which is all lies. Jesus said he's a liar and the father of lies, and everything Satan does to us is that he targets our faith. That's what he wants. He wants us to be, "O ye of little faith," not the great faith that Jesus was talking about that Gentile had. But when David he was tending his father's sheep, King David, you gotta love King David. You've seen his wickedness and you've seen his problems, but you seen his steadfastness, and you saw him wanting to hold on to God. Well, he killed a lion. A lion came to steal the sheep, and he says he went after that lion to kill it with his bare hands. Then a bear came, and he got after the bear and defeated it. So now the lad is facing another giant in his life. He was facing something that to most of us it would look incomprehensible. You couldn't even use your imagination to think that he could defeat the giant that was in his life. And that was when Goliath, remember the 9 foot 6 inch giant that was making fun of Israel, and David went down there and he listened to it, and he saw everything that was going on, and he asked, what is this? Who is this? Who is this out here that's mocking the people of God? What does he think he's doing? Mocking God and mocking the people of God, that somehow he's greater than our God? And he had King Saul and all of his army backed up in fear. They couldn't move. It was just wrapped up in fear so bad that they couldn't even imagine going out and facing this giant, because King Saul had fallen from strong faith to nearly weak faith. He didn't have much faith. That the old King Saul probably could have handled it, but not the new King Saul. And David, who had been anointed by Samuel, Samuel went there and poured the oil, over King David, and he was just a lad, maybe 15, 16, 17, and he's there, and he's bringing some food to his brothers who was gathered there to fight the Palestinians. But this king come out, and he said, if there's somebody in the camp of Saul that can come out here and defeat me, then we'll be conquered and you can have us. But if we conquer you, we can have you. And day in and day out. But he made a mistake when David got there, because David was ready to bounce on him. Because King Saul said, David, you're a lad. You can't go out there and fight this guy. You're just a lad. And he said to the king, he said, King, I remember when I killed the lion that tried to take the sheep, and the bear that tried to do the same thing. And then God delivered me from both the bear and the lion. And what David was doing, he was falling back on the great victories that he had, that God had given him, the miracles that he experienced from the hand of God. And he said, I remember those things, and that same God that gave me victory then will give me victory under this uncircumcised Philistine. Of course, you know the story, how he went out there and he wound up his slingshot and hit him right between the eyes, and he fell over dead. And then David went down there and pulled a sword out of the giant and whacked his head off. And that day Israel had a great victory. But it was because a little boy, a lad, not a boy, but about 15 to 17 years old, somewhere in there, that he drawed on faith from when some other times in his life, that God gave him victories, God gave him miracles. And he said, if God can do it then, God can do it now. The same God that gave me the victory over the lion, the victory over the bear, that's the same God that gave me victory over this giant. Amen? And so he went down and he had a great victory that day. So in our lives, we want to be able to draw from previous victories in order to get through the new challenges. And I think today we're seeing a new challenge in our lives, such like as never been seen, at least wise not by my generation. They haven't. We've seen some things, but this great God is the same God. He's the same God today he was when all this pandemic and this virus and all this rioters and all this mass stuff that's taken place in our country. China had some kind of a lightning thing that hit their place yesterday or the day before. It hit the thing up there, and people couldn't even imagine what it was. And then you've had that big bomb that went off in Beirut. horrible situation. And then you had Iran has been hit so many times. They've been hit with new, and it happened again the same day. I think it was the same day that Beirut got hit. Iran got hit in the same day. And then you see where the United Arab Republic is, and they got hit with some kind of a blast, and so on it goes. I mean, it hasn't stopped. Every day we're seeing bombs go off and blasts go off, and it's designed. It's designed to terrorize the people of Earth. That's what it's designed to do. They're just like these riots and everything that's going on in our country. They're designed to tear this pandemic, designed to terrorize us. Because fear will cause you to stiff it up, and you can't move. and it takes you a while to get your, like when I think I told this story, but one time my daughter Christy, she was down in Oklahoma, was out of the lake fishing, and there was a water moccasin by her. She couldn't move. She might not realized it, but I seen what was going on. I said, Christy, and she couldn't move. And so I went over there and I got seen that snake, and I got her and got her out of there, and then she relaxed. And that's what fear does. It terrorizes us, and it causes us to be ineffective. We can't accomplish what God has asked us to accomplish. And He said to take this gospel and go into all the world and preach it to every creature for a witness. Okay? Yeah. And He wants us to, and He said as you go, you can lay your hands on the sick and they be healed. You can cast out devils in my name, and that's the commission of Christ has given us the church. But we have to do it by faith, and sometimes it's just the very, very faith that gets us through. And so we want to try and trust God, like in this pandemic, in this chaos, this madness, this evilness that is throwing so many Christians into unbelief, and it's causing